The continent breathes. Ancient, isolated, alive. From space, Australia appears as a rust-colored scar carved into the blue planet, edges kissed by turquoise waters that hide secrets older than human memory. For 65 million years, this land drifted alone, severed from the world, evolving its own rules, its own nightmares, its own gods. Here, nature didn't just adapt. It experimented, it weaponized, it perfected the art of survival through terror. Beneath the sun-scorched deserts and within the emerald depths of ancient rainforests, something stirs. Not one discovery, but dozens. Hidden in plain sight, buried in the deep, crawling through the canopy. Scientists standing at the edge of these revelations speak in hushed tones, their eyes reflecting equal parts wonder and dread. Because what they're finding shouldn't exist, yet it does. And it's been waiting. This is a map of Australia. The smallest continent with one of the largest countries, the seventh continent, the world's oldest, flattest, and driest inhabited region. But those descriptions barely scratch the surface of what this land truly is. It is a laboratory of evolution gone wild, a museum of monsters, a warning written in venom, teeth, and shadows. Tonight, we descend into the hidden heart of this ancient land to uncover 15 terrifying new discoveries that have left the scientific world reeling. From the crushing depths of the ocean to the heights of forgotten rainforests, from fossils that rewrite human history to viruses that could change our future. Each discovery more unsettling than the last, because in Australia, the line between discovery and danger has always been razor thin. And what scientists are finding now suggests that line is about to disappear completely. Number 15. The glowing predators of the abyss. The ocean trembles in the darkness. 600 meters below the surface, where sunlight has been dead for millions of years, something moves. Something that shouldn't glow, but does. In late 2022, the research vessel Investigator cut through the waters off Western Australia's coast, its sonar probing the deep like fingers, searching through black velvet. The Gascoyne Marine Park, a place where the continental shelf drops away into an abyss that has remained unexplored since the dawn of time. The team of marine biologists aboard expected to find new species. What they didn't expect was to find living light. When the nets came up, dripping with the pressure of the deep, scientists gathered around in silence. There, among the twisted creatures of the abyss, lay something extraordinary. A shark, small, slender, with eyes too large for its body, adapted to drink in every photon of light that dares venture into its world. But it was what happened next that made them catch their breath. In the darkness of the ship's laboratory, the shark began to glow. Meet the West Australian lantern shark, Etmopterus westraliensis, the newest nightmare discovered in Australian waters. Dr. Will White, an ichthyologist from the CSIRO Australian National Fish Collection, was there when they identified it. "Lantern sharks are an amazing group of sharks," he said, but his voice carried something else, awe mixed with unease. This new species was found at depths to 610 meters. The shark measures only 40 centimeters in length, but its presence suggests something far more terrifying. It glows through bioluminescence with light produced by photophores scattered across its belly and flanks. In the pitch black of the deep ocean, it becomes a constellation, a moving star field of biological terror. But why does it glow? Scientists believe the light serves multiple purposes: camouflage from below, confusing predators by matching the faint light filtering from above, communication with others of its kind through patterns we can barely comprehend, and perhaps most disturbing, as a lure, drawing prey close in the darkness before those oversized jaws strike. But the West Australian lantern shark wasn't alone in those depths. Beside it, the researchers found something equally alien: a crab, semi-transparent, about the size of an almond, its body barely more than a whisper of chitin and muscle. A porcelain crab, new to science, living in pressures that would crush a human instantly. What's truly terrifying isn't just that these creatures exist. It's that they represent something larger. Nearly 20 new species have been described from that single 2022 voyage. And researchers estimate there are potentially up to 600 more new species still waiting to be identified from the specimens collected. 600 unknown creatures living in Australian waters, some of them glowing, some transparent, all perfectly adapted to environments we can barely survive in with our best technology. Dr. White and his team are preparing for another voyage, this time to the Coral Sea Marine Park. The same researchers, returning to the darkness, knowing now what awaits, knowing that every net they pull up could contain something that rewrites our understanding of life itself. As night falls over the Western Australian coast, the waters grow black, and somewhere beneath those waves, hundreds of lantern sharks begin their nightly ascent, their bellies glowing like underwater stars, hunting in a world we've only just begun to understand. A world that has been hunting in the darkness for millions of years, waiting patiently for us to notice. Number 14. The giant that hides in the canopy. The rainforest canopy stretches like a cathedral ceiling, 40 meters above the forest floor. Up here, the air is different, cooler, wetter, heavy with the breath of leaves and the promise of rain. And something else, something that shouldn't be this heavy, this large, this hidden. For millions of years, it watched from above. A creature so massive it defies the very definition of its kind. And yet, until 2025, science had no idea it existed. The wet tropics of far north Queensland, a place where civilization touches the edge of prehistoric wildness. These mountains hold secrets in their midst. Ancient rainforests that have survived ice ages, droughts, and time itself. Angus Emmett from James Cook University was exploring this remote region when he found something that made him question everything he knew about Australian insects. A stick insect. But not just any stick insect, a titan. A monster disguised as a branch. Meet Acrophylla alta, the newly discovered species that may be the heaviest insect ever found in Australia. It weighs 44 grams, the same weight as a golf ball. It measures 40 centimeters in length. To put that in perspective, it's longer than a standard ruler and heavier than most birds. As far as we know, this is the heaviest insect found in Australia, Emmett stated, his voice carrying disbelief even as he held the evidence in his hands. But the truly unsettling question is, how did something this large remain hidden for so long? The answer lies in its habitat. Acrophylla alta lives high in the canopy of mountainous rainforest, rarely descending to where humans walk. It is confined to a limited region of high-altitude rainforest and resides high in the canopy, Emmett explained. Unless a cyclone occurs or a bird brings one down, very few people have the opportunity to observe them. But there's something more disturbing about this discovery. The insect's massive size isn't just an evolutionary accident, it's an adaptation. Their body mass likely assists them in enduring the cooler conditions, Emmett noted. This is probably why they have evolved into this large insect over millions of years. Think about that. An insect that evolved to be heavy enough to withstand mountain cold. An insect that grew so large it can barely be called an insect anymore. What does that say about what else might be lurking in those canopies? Unseen? Unimagined? The eggs of Acrophylla alta are equally unique. Every stick insect species has its own specific egg characteristics, Emmett said. They possess various surfaces, textures, and shapes, and even the caps on them are quite distinctive. These eggs are unlike anything seen before in Australian entomology, suggesting this species split from its relatives millions of years ago and followed its own evolutionary path into gigantism. 2 specimens now sit in the Queensland Museum, but researchers believe there are more out there, perhaps even larger. The wet tropics cover thousands of square kilometers of largely unexplored canopy. And if this discovery teaches us anything, it's that the canopy keeps its secrets well. As the sun sets behind the mountain ranges, the mist rolls in, and the rainforest transforms. Up in those trees, something massive clings to a branch, perfectly camouflaged, perfectly still. Watching, waiting, and we walk beneath, never knowing what giants observe us from above. Number 13. The virus that waits. There are places in Australia where the sky darkens not with clouds, but with wings. Millions of wings. The flying foxes. Australia's largest bats move in rivers of leather and fur, their colonies stretching for kilometers. Beautiful, intelligent, essential to the ecosystem. And inside them, something sleeps. Something that scientists just discovered. Something that has been circulating since 2011, undetected, unnamed, waiting for its moment. They call it salt gully virus. In 2025, researchers at CSIRO's Australian Centre for Disease Preparedness made an announcement that sent ripples through the global health community. They had identified a new henipavirus in Australian flying foxes from urine samples collected in Queensland. The virus was isolated and grown in high-containment laboratories, where scientists work behind layers of protection studying some of the world's most dangerous pathogens. Jennifer Barr, experimental scientist at CSIRO's facility, tried to sound reassuring. Although salt gully virus is new to science, there's no cause for public alarm. But then came the part that makes sleep difficult. We've detected salt gully virus in bat samples dating back to 2011, which shows it's been circulating in nature for over a decade. Salt gully virus belongs to the henipavirus family. If that name doesn't chill you, it should. This is the same family as Hendra virus, which has caused fatal infections in horses and humans in Australia. The same family as Nipah virus, known for causing outbreaks across Asia with mortality rates reaching 75%. The World Health Organization lists henipaviruses as priority pathogens for research. Translation: these are the viruses that keep epidemiologists awake at night. Early findings show salt gully virus does not rely on the same cell receptors as Hendra or Nipah viruses, Barr explained, suggesting that the infection process will be different. As a result, we can't predict whether it will result in future disease outbreaks in humans or animals. Read that again. They cannot predict. Despite all our technology, all our understanding, we have a virus that's been circulating for over a decade, and we have no idea what it might do if it jumps species, if it mutates, if it finds the right conditions. Flying foxes are critical to Australia's ecology. They pollinate trees, disperse seeds, and maintain the health of forests across the continent. But they're also reservoirs for viruses that can cross the species barrier. Hendra virus has already proven that. Since its discovery in 1994, it has killed horses and humans. Each outbreak a reminder that the line between wildlife and human disease is thin and easily crossed. Salt gully virus has been quietly evolving inside bat populations for at least 14 years. What has it learned in that time? How has it adapted? The fact that it uses different cell receptors means existing vaccines might not protect against it. It means we're starting from zero if it ever decides to emerge. CSIRO scientists are now racing to understand this virus before it becomes a problem. They're developing diagnostic tests so that if a spillover occurs, they can detect it early. They're studying its structure, its behavior, its potential to cause disease. But here's what keeps researchers up at night. Australia is home to dozens of bat species. Each one could be carrying viruses we've never identified. Each one a potential reservoir for the next pandemic. Salt gully virus is just the one they happened to find. As night falls across Queensland, the flying foxes emerge from their roosts, darkening the sky in their thousands. They fly over cities, over farms, over families sleeping peacefully below. Inside them, viruses replicate, evolve, wait. And somewhere in that aerial river of life, The next great threat to human health might be taking its first mutations toward emergence. Number 12. The resurrection of the extinct. There's a moment in science when the impossible becomes real. When a ghost materializes. When something declared dead walks back into the light. In July 2022, on Lord Howe Island, that moment arrived. Maxim Adams, a biology student from the University of Sydney, was exploring North Bay with senior scientist Nicholas Carlisle. The island rose around them, ancient and isolated, 600 kilometers off the Australian coast, a place where evolution had written its own rules for millions of years. They were searching beneath banyan trees, lifting rocks, documenting the island's incredible biodiversity. Then Adams lifted a particular rock beneath an enormous banyan tree and froze. For the first 10 seconds or so, I thought, no, that can't be, Adams recalled. I mean, I raised the first rock beneath this huge banyan tree, and there it was. The Lord Howe Island wood-feeding cockroach, a species thought extinct since the 1930s. We spotted families of them all beneath this one banyan, Carlisle added, his voice thick with emotion. For the rest of the week, they searched under every other banyan in North Bay. Nothing. Just that one tree. One population. One last stand against oblivion. The story of this cockroach is the story of Australia's fragile biodiversity. Once abundant across Lord Howe Island, these remarkable insects were driven to apparent extinction when rats arrived on ships in 1918. Over the following decades, the rats spread across the island, devouring native species with ruthless efficiency. By the 1930s, the wood-feeding cockroach had vanished. Or so everyone thought. But here they were, alive. A population that had somehow survived for nearly a century, clinging to existence beneath a single tree. A lineage that refused to die even when the world declared them gone. Professor Nathan Lowe, head of the University of Sydney's Molecular Ecology Lab, explained the significance. There is still so much to learn. We hope to learn more about how they survive by studying their habitat, behavior, and genetics. Because this cockroach isn't just surviving. It's thriving in a way that defies logic. Despite its name, researchers now believe it might be misnamed. Despite its common name, implying that they are wood-feeding cockroaches that burrow in rotting logs, we now believe they are more of a rock roach, with rocks forming an important component of their habitat, Carlisle explained. This changes everything. For decades, scientists assumed they knew what this species needed to survive. They were wrong, which raises a terrifying question. How many other extinct species are out there, surviving in ways we can't imagine, in places we never thought to look? The cockroach is 20 to 40 millimeters long, with a metallic body ranging from reddish to black. Unlike most cockroaches, these creatures live in family groups, with nymphs staying alongside adults. They've co-evolved with the island for millions of years, developing specialized gut microorganisms to digest cellulose and wood. Lord Howe Island Board Chair Atticus Fleming put it into perspective. Lord Howe Island is a truly remarkable area. It is older than the Galapagos Islands and home to 1,600 native invertebrate species, half of which are found nowhere else on the planet. Think about that. 800 species found nowhere else on Earth, all on a single small island. And for 80 years, one of them was hiding beneath one tree, waiting to be found. But the discovery raises darker questions. This population is genetically distinct from related species found on offshore islets. They've been isolated, evolving separately, becoming their own unique lineage. What happens if disease strikes? If a cyclone destroys that single banyan tree? If climate change shifts the delicate conditions they need? Scientists had been researching the feasibility of reintroducing cockroaches from offshore islands to the main island. Now they don't have to. But they also realize they're watching a species balanced on the edge of a knife, one disaster away from true extinction. As night falls over Lord Howe Island, the wood-feeding cockroaches emerge from beneath their protective rocks. Families moving together, feeding, surviving in the only way they know. Unaware that for 80 years, the world thought them gone. Unaware that their rediscovery has given scientists hope and dread in equal measure. Because if this species could hide for 80 years, what else is out there? What other ghosts walk Lord Howe Island's forests, and how many of them might disappear before we even know they existed? Number 11. The rewriting of human history. Deep in Mammoth Cave, southwestern Australia, something rests in eternal darkness. A fossilized bone, cut, marked, changed by human hands. For decades, scientists believed they understood what those marks meant. Evidence of hunting. Proof that the first peoples of Australia drove the continent's megafauna to extinction. The narrative was simple. Humans arrived, hunted the giants, and within 20,000 years, the massive creatures were gone. But in October 2025, everything changed. Researchers using advanced scanning technology analyzed the internal structure of a kangaroo tibia discovered in the 1960s. The bone is approximately 50,000 years old. From a time when giants walked Australia, 10-foot-tall kangaroos, wombat-like marsupials with tusks like rhinoceroses, echidnas the size of sheep. What they found rewrote human history. The cut marks on the bone weren't made on fresh flesh. They were made on fossil, long after the animal died, long after the bone had turned to stone. The first peoples weren't butchering megafauna. They were collecting fossils. This discovery is so profound, it shakes the foundation of Australian prehistory. According to the study published in Royal Society Open Science, Indigenous Australians valued these ancient bones not as food, but as artifacts. They transported them over extensive distances. They kept them, cherished them, perhaps used them in ceremonies, perhaps told stories about the giants that once walked their land. Think about the implications. These were people who understood deep time, who recognized that these bones came from creatures that lived before their ancestors, who saw value not in meat, but in memory. The narrative that Indigenous Australians hunted the megafauna to extinction has been a cornerstone of Australian archaeology. But this discovery suggests something far more complex. Perhaps the giants were already disappearing when humans arrived 65,000 years ago. Perhaps climate change, not hunting, drove them to extinction. Perhaps the first peoples witnessed the end of an age and preserved what they could of it. When humans first reached Australia, they encountered a world of monsters. Giant goannas that could swallow a child whole. Marsupial lions with retractable claws and crushing jaws. Birds taller than humans with beaks like axes. And the kangaroos. Massive hopping behemoths that could disembowel a predator with a single kick. By 46,000 years ago, they were all gone. Every single one. Scientists have argued for years about why. Some blamed human hunting. Others pointed to climate shifts as the planet entered an ice age. This new discovery suggests a third possibility, that the megafauna were already in decline and humans simply witnessed their final chapter. But there's something even more unsettling in this research. If the first peoples were collecting fossils 50,000 years ago, what else were they doing that we've misinterpreted? How many other hunting sites are actually fossil collection sites? How many spear points are actually tools for something else entirely? The indigenous peoples of Australia lived in harmony with the land for 65,000 years. The longest continuous culture in human history. They developed sophisticated understanding of ecology, astronomy, and geology. They created the oldest known art. They told stories that encoded information about sea level changes from the last ice age. And now we learn they were paleontologists, fossil collectors, keepers of ancient history. In caves across Australia, there may be more of these fossils, gathered, preserved, waiting to tell us stories about a time when giants walked and humans watched in awe. each one a testament to a culture that understood something we're only beginning to grasp: that the past matters, that memory has value, that some things should be preserved even if they can't be eaten. As researchers examine more fossil sites across Australia, they're finding similar evidence: cut marks made on ancient bone, fossils transported far from their origin, collections that make no sense if the goal was food, but perfect sense if the goal was preservation. The giants are gone, but the first peoples remembered them, honored them, kept their bones as sacred reminders of a world that existed before human time. And in doing so, they became the first scientists, the first to recognize that studying the past could teach us about the present. A lesson we're still learning today. Number 10. The forest that glows with death. Certain trees in Australia don't just kill. They announce their presence with beauty. Bright flowers, lush leaves, an appearance that seems to invite touch. That invitation is a lie. The Gympie Gympie tree stands in the rainforests of northeastern Australia, looking like any other bush. Heart-shaped leaves with serrated edges. Delicate filaments covering the stems and leaves like soft fur. From a distance, it appears harmless, almost inviting. But those filaments are loaded with one of the most agonizing toxins on the planet, and there is no antidote. The plant takes its name from the indigenous Gubbi Gubbi people and the town of Gympie. Its scientific name is Dendrocnide moroides, a member of the nettle family. But calling it a nettle is like calling a tsunami a wave. Technically accurate, but catastrophically understated. Each filament on the Gympie Gympie is a hypodermic needle filled with neurotoxin, microscopic bulbs containing venom that, upon contact, break off and embed in flesh. Once in the skin, they're almost impossible to remove, and the pain they cause is legendary. People who've been stung describe it as being electrocuted while simultaneously being burned with hot acid. The pain doesn't fade. It intensifies for days, sometimes weeks, in some cases, years. In 1866, A.C. Macmillan, a road surveyor from North Queensland, reported his pack horse being stung. The animal went mad with pain. 2 hours later, it was dead. Ernie Ryder, stung in 1963, described it as feeling like giant hands were crushing his chest. The pain was unbearable for days. Gradually it improved, but every cold shower brought it back, sharp and vicious. For 2 years, the sting haunted him. Some victims have committed suicide rather than endure the prolonged agony. The toxin is heat-resistant and chemically stable. Museum specimens dried and preserved for over a century can still sting. The poison doesn't degrade. It waits, patient and perfect for the next moment of contact. Researchers studying the Gympie Gympie must work with extreme caution. Full protective suits, respirators to avoid breathing the fine hairs that can float in the air. Because just being near the plant can be dangerous. The filaments can become airborne, and breathing them in causes the inside of the respiratory system to swell. In severe cases, the lymph nodes beneath the arms bulge and throb for up to 24 hours. The entire nervous system goes into overdrive, firing pain signals continuously, overwhelming every other sensation. But here's what's truly terrifying. Scientists still don't fully understand how the toxin works. They know it contains peptides and other compounds that stimulate pain receptors. They know it causes persistent activation of nerve pathways. But the exact mechanism remains partially mysterious. Recent research has revealed that the toxin is actually more sophisticated than previously thought. It contains multiple compounds working in concert, each triggering different pain pathways. It's not one weapon, it's an arsenal. The Gympie Gympie grows in clearings and along creekways, places where humans are most likely to walk. It thrives in disturbed areas, sprouting up wherever the forest canopy opens, as though it's waiting, positioning itself for maximum contact. Indigenous peoples have known about the plant for thousands of years. They have stories about warriors who use the leaves to poison their enemies. about criminals who are punished by being forced to touch the plant, about sacred groves where the gympie grows so thick that entering means death. Some tribes believe the plant is inhabited by malevolent spirits. Others see it as a guardian, protecting sacred sites from intruders. Either way, they teach their children one simple rule: never touch, never even get close. As the sun sets over the Queensland rainforest, the gympie stands silent among the trees. Its leaves sway gently in the breeze, those soft-looking filaments catching the last light. Beautiful, innocent, deadly, and somewhere in those forests, researchers estimate there may be hundreds of thousands of these plants. Growing, waiting. Their toxin refined over millions of years into something approaching perfection. No antidote exists. No treatment beyond time and suffering. Just the plant, the poison, and the promise of pain that might never truly end. Number 9. The ocean's hidden architects. The Great Barrier Reef. The largest living structure on Earth. Visible from space. A monument to the power of tiny creatures working in concert over millennia. And we didn't even know what was building it. In August 2025, researchers announced a discovery that fundamentally reshapes our understanding of the reef. What scientists thought was a single species of coral was actually many. 5 new species identified. 9 previously discarded species names resurrected. An entire family tree rewritten. Dr. Sage Rasmussen from the University of Technology, Sydney, led the research. Table corals are some of the most familiar and beautiful corals on the reef, so we assumed they were well understood. His voice carried embarrassment and wonder in equal measure. But our research reveals the opposite. What was once considered a single, widespread species is actually a whole group of species with much smaller geographical ranges. Think about that. The Great Barrier Reef, one of the most studied ecosystems on Earth, and we were wrong about its most iconic inhabitants. Table corals form the broad, flat platforms that define much of the reef's architecture. They provide shelter for thousands of fish species. Their branches create labyrinths where life explodes in every direction. They're the foundation upon which entire ecosystems rest, and we didn't know them at all. The research team combined genome-scale DNA analysis with machine learning, creating a new benchmark for how scientists identify coral species. Dr. Toudat, Peter Cowman from Queensland Museum, and James Cook University explained, "We combined the latest genome-scale DNA analysis and machine learning with a fresh look at century-old museum specimens to uncover evolutionary details we've never seen before. But the implications go far beyond identification. If these are separate species with much smaller geographical ranges, then they're far more vulnerable than we thought. A single bleaching event could wipe out an entire species rather than just damaging a widespread population. The Great Barrier Reef is already under assault. Rising ocean temperatures, ocean acidification, crown of thorns starfish outbreaks, human pollution. Each year brings new challenges, new losses. Scientists estimate that half the reef has died since 2016. Now we learn that what remains is even more fragile than we feared. Species we didn't know existed are disappearing before we can study them. Genetic diversity we didn't know we had is vanishing into the warming waters. But there's something even more disturbing lurking beneath this discovery. If we were this wrong about table corals, what else have we misidentified? How many other species on the reef are actually multiple species? How much biodiversity exists that we've simply overlooked because we assumed we already understood? The Great Barrier Reef spans 2,300 kilometers along Australia's northeastern coast. It contains approximately 3,000 individual reefs and 900 islands. Scientists estimate it supports at least 1,500 species of fish, 400 species of coral, 4,000 species of mollusks, and countless other organisms. But those numbers are based on the assumption that we know what we're counting. This discovery suggests we might be dramatically underestimating the reef's diversity. Dr. Rasmussen's team is now examining other coral groups, applying the same sophisticated genetic analysis. Early results suggest more surprises await. More species hiding in plain sight. More diversity than anyone imagined. As night falls over the Great Barrier Reef, the corals begin their work. Polyps extend from their calcium carbonate homes, filtering the water for microscopic food. New generations spawn, releasing larvae into the current. The reef builds itself, one tiny animal at a time, following genetic instructions we're only beginning to decode. But the water is warming. Each summer brings temperatures closer to the threshold where corals bleach and die. And now we know that what we thought was one tough, widespread species might be dozens of specialized, vulnerable species, each adapted to specific conditions, each irreplaceable. The architects of the reef are more diverse and more endangered than we knew. And time to save them is running out faster than we thought. Number 8. The river that should not exist in the remote Kimberley region of Western Australia. The ocean does something impossible. Something that defies physics. Something that local indigenous people have watched with awe and fear for thousands of years. The water flows uphill. Or seems to. Creating waterfalls that move horizontally, reversing direction with the tides, channeling the power of entire oceans through gaps barely wider than a bus. The horizontal falls, or as the indigenous Gwara Gwara people call them, Garangadam. Sir David Attenborough called it Australia's most unusual natural wonder. He noted that only a handful of people in the world had witnessed it 15 years ago. Today, it remains one of the most dangerous and spectacular natural phenomena on the planet. The falls occur in Talbot Bay, where two narrow gorges cut through the McClarty Range. The seaward gap is about 20 meters wide. The inner gap is barely 10 meters. Between them lies a basin that fills and empties with the tides. The Kimberley coast experiences some of the largest tidal variations in the world, up to 10 meters between high and low tide. When the tide turns, millions of gallons of seawater must force itself through these tiny gaps. Approximately 1 million gallons per second rush through the openings at peak flow. The water has nowhere to go but up, creating waterfalls that can reach 4 meters in height. Horizontal waterfalls, churning with whirlpools and eddies powerful enough to tear boats apart. And the falls reverse. As the tide changes, the flow switches direction. The waterfall that flowed east now flows west. The ocean breathing in and out through these ancient stone throats. Scientists studying the phenomenon describe it as one of the most powerful tidal currents on Earth. The water accelerates through the gaps, creating hydrodynamic forces that would crush anything caught in them. Boats that venture too close during peak flow can be sucked into the maelstrom, capsized, and destroyed in seconds. But it's not just the power that makes this terrifying. It's the unpredictability. The falls don't follow simple patterns. The interaction between tides, weather, and the complex geography of the bay creates currents that shift and change. What seems safe one moment becomes deadly the next. Local tour operators who brave the falls in specially designed boats speak of it with the reverence usually reserved for hurricanes and earthquakes. It's not a place, one captain said. It's a force. You don't control it. You negotiate with it. And sometimes it says no. Indigenous traditions hold that the falls are sacred. A meeting place of spirits. The Gwara Gwara people tell stories of ancestral beings who carved the gaps in the rock, creating a passage between worlds. They say that during certain tides, when the moon is right and the water flows fastest, you can hear voices in the roar. The ancestors speaking, warning, watching. Geologists believe the gorges were formed millions of years ago by ancient rivers cutting through the sandstone. But the current configuration is relatively recent in geological terms, perhaps only tens of thousands of years old. Still developing, still changing. The horizontal falls exist in a delicate balance. The gaps must be narrow enough to restrict flow, but wide enough to allow it. Too narrow and the pressure would shatter the rock. Too wide and the phenomenon would disappear. And that balance is threatened. Mining interests eye the Kimberley region. Climate change alters tidal patterns. Development pressures mount. In 2019, tourism operators ceased entering the falls themselves, no longer allowing boats to pass through the gaps due to safety concerns and environmental protection efforts. Now tourists watch from a distance, seeing the water explode through the ancient stone, but never feeling its full power. As the tide turns over Talbot Bay, the ocean begins its transformation. The water level drops, and suddenly the flow reverses. The basin empties through the gaps, creating waterfalls that point in the opposite direction. The ocean turns itself inside out twice a day, every day, as it has for millennia. Scientists call it a unique tidal phenomenon. The indigenous people call it sacred. Visitors call it impossible. But there it is, water flowing upward. The ocean defying gravity through sheer volume and force, a reminder that in Australia, even the water follows rules we don't fully understand. Number 7. The swarm beneath the sand. The desert seems lifeless at first. Endless red sand stretching to the horizon under a merciless sun. No movement. No sound. Nothing but heat and silence. But that's a lie. Beneath the surface, something waits. Something ancient and patient. Something that emerges without warning, transforming the landscape into a living nightmare. The bulldog ants of Australia. Myrmecia species. The most primitive ants on Earth and among the most dangerous. Unlike other ants that have evolved social cooperation and specialized roles, bulldog ants remain evolutionary throwbacks. Each worker can reproduce. Each one hunts alone. Each one possesses venom powerful enough to kill. They're massive for ants, some species reaching 40 millimeters in length. Their mandibles are huge, serrated, designed to grip and tear, but it's their stingers that make them legendary. Long, barbed, capable of stinging repeatedly while injecting venom that ranks among the most painful of any insect. People stung by bulldog ants describe pain that makes bee stings feel like tickles. The venom attacks pain receptors with precision, triggering waves of agony that can last for days. Swelling, burning, a sensation like acid being injected into the bloodstream. But for some people, it's worse, much worse. Bulldog ant venom contains some of the most allergenic proteins known to science. They trigger anaphylactic shock in approximately 3% of people stung. Without immediate treatment, these reactions are fatal. Since the 1980s, several people in Australia have died from bulldog ant stings. Think about that. Killed by an ant. The ants are also remarkably aggressive. They don't flee when threatened. They attack. Using excellent vision, rare among ants, they can track movement and target threats from up to a meter away. When they attack, they leap, literally jumping at their victims, mandibles spread, stinger ready. And they never forget. Researchers studying bulldog ants report that disturbing a nest creates a response that lasts for weeks. The ants will attack anyone who approaches the area, as though they remember the insult and are determined to exact revenge. But what makes them truly terrifying is their hunting strategy. Bulldog ants are predators. They don't scavenge like other ants. They hunt live prey, insects, spiders, even small vertebrates if the opportunity arises. At night, they emerge from their underground nests, spreading across the landscape like a living net. Each ant hunts independently, using vision and chemical cues to track prey. When they find something, they attack with horrifying efficiency. Mandibles lock onto the victim, while the stinger drives home again and again, pumping venom until the prey stops moving. Dr. Justin Schmidt, the entomologist who created the famous Schmidt Pain Index rating insect stings, gave bulldog ants some of the highest scores. He described the sting of one species as bold and unrelenting, like somebody is using a drill to excavate your ingrown toenail. But there are over 90 species of bulldog ants in Australia, each with slightly different venom. Some cause mostly pain. Others cause severe allergic reactions. A few can do both. And they're everywhere, from the tropical north to the temperate south, in forests, grasslands, and deserts, under rocks, in rotting logs, beneath the sand. Building nests that can house thousands of individuals, all ready to defend their territory with venom and violence. Recent research has revealed something even more disturbing. The ants are learning. Urban populations show different behaviors than rural ones. They're adapting to human presence, becoming more aggressive, nesting in parks and gardens where contact is inevitable. Children playing in backyards get stung. Hikers stepping off trails encounter nests. Gardeners reaching into plants trigger attacks, and each year, the emergency room visits increase. Scientists studying the venom are finding potential benefits. Compounds in bulldog ant venom show promise for treating conditions from arthritis to autoimmune diseases. The same proteins that cause such agony might save lives. But for now, as the Australian sun sets and the temperature drops, the bulldog ants begin their nightly emergence. Thousands of them, millions across the continent. Each one a perfect predator, refined over 100 million years of evolution. The desert isn't empty. It's waiting. And what it's waiting with has venom, wings, and a temper that makes demons look peaceful. Number 6. The bird that evolution forgot. In the dense rainforests of northern Australia and Papua New Guinea, something moves through the undergrowth. Large, flightless, blue. A bird that shouldn't exist. A remnant of a time before mammals ruled, before humans walked, before the continents took their current shape. A living fossil that proves evolution doesn't always move forward. The cassowary. And it's more terrifying than you can imagine. Standing up to 1.8 meters tall and weighing up to 60 kilograms, cassowaries are the world's most dangerous birds. They possess legs like tree trunks, ending in feet armed with dagger-like claws. The middle claw on each foot can reach 12 centimeters in length, sharp enough to disembowel a human with a single kick. Their heads are topped with a bony casque, a helmet-like structure whose purpose remains partially mysterious. Some scientists believe it amplifies low-frequency sounds, allowing cassowaries to communicate through the dense jungle. Others think it's a secondary sexual characteristic or a tool for pushing through vegetation. Whatever its purpose, it makes the cassowary's profile instantly recognizable and vaguely prehistoric. Which makes sense, because cassowaries are dinosaurs, not descended from dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. Living links to the Mesozoic, walking through Queensland rainforests with the same basic body plan their ancestors had 60 million years ago. But it's their behavior that makes them truly dangerous. Cassowaries are unpredictable, territorial, easily provoked. And when threatened, they don't flee. They attack. Multiple deaths have been attributed to cassowaries. The most recent in 2019, when a man in Florida was killed by his pet cassowary. It kicked him multiple times, the claw opening his abdomen. He bled to death before help could arrive. In Australia, cassowaries injure several people each year. Most attacks occur when people get too close, attempting photographs or offering food. The bird doesn't see this as kindness. It sees invasion, threat, and it responds the only way evolution taught it. But what makes cassowaries truly fascinating isn't just their danger. It's their role in the ecosystem. They're one of the few animals capable of dispersing the seeds of over 150 rainforest plant species. Some of these seeds are so large that only cassowaries can swallow and transport them. Without cassowaries, entire tree species would cease to regenerate. The birds are also remarkably intelligent. They remember individual humans, locations of fruiting trees across vast territories, and seasonal patterns spanning years. Their deep, booming calls, frequencies so low they travel kilometers through dense forest, allow them to communicate across distances that would make other birds silent. But cassowary populations are declining. Habitat loss. Vehicle strikes on roads cutting through their territory. Dog attacks. Climate change affecting food availability. Scientists estimate fewer than 4,000 darlings remain in Australia, which means this living dinosaur, this creature that survived the extinction of its relatives 66 million years ago, might not survive us. As dawn breaks over the Daintree rainforest, a cassowary emerges from the shadows. Its blue and purple neck catches the first light. The casque gleams. For a moment, it stands perfectly still, a statue carved from prehistory. Then it moves, disappearing back into the green, carrying seeds in its gut that will become the forest of tomorrow. If there is a tomorrow. Number 5. The Plateau. That time forgot in the remote northwest of Australia, where the land turns red and ancient, there exists a geological miracle, the Kimberley Plateau. A vast tableland carved by time, isolated by distance, home to species found nowhere else on Earth. And scientists just discovered something there that changes everything we know about isolation and evolution. In October 2025, researchers from James Cook University announced the discovery of 3 new species on Dawan Island, a tiny 3-square-kilometer boulder field in the northern Torres Strait, a gecko, and 2 frogs, each unique, each perfectly adapted to this miniature world. Associate Professor Conrad Hoskin led the expedition. It's quite difficult to find obviously new species in Australia, he said, his voice betraying excitement. So to find 3 in one spot on this tiny little island is wild. But it's the island's geography that makes this discovery so extraordinary. Dawan Island is actually the northernmost point of the Great Dividing Range, the spine of eastern Australia. It rises from the sea like a fortress, its peak composed of millions of granite boulders, many the size of houses, piled in chaotic layers that create a maze of cool, moist microhabitats. The gecko, with its beaky face and leaf-shaped tail, lives deep in these boulder piles. Emerging only at night, perfectly camouflaged against granite, it represents a lineage that split from its mainland relatives potentially millions of years ago. The 2 frog species are equally remarkable. They survive in an environment that should be too dry, too exposed, too harsh. But the boulder piles trap moisture, create microclimates, offer refuges where life can persist against all odds. A lot of the Torres Strait Islands are quite flat and low, Hoskin explained. But because Dawan Island sticks up out of the sea like a giant traffic cone, it offers amazing hiding spaces for animals that need a cooler, wetter environment to thrive. This discovery is part of a larger pattern emerging across Australia. Remote islands, isolated plateaus, and rugged mountain ranges are revealing endemic species at an unprecedented rate. In 2023 alone, over 750 new native species were identified across Australia. That's more than 2 new species discovered every single day. Think about that scale. In one of the most studied continents on Earth, we're still finding hundreds of species we never knew existed. And scientists estimate that 70% of Australia's native species remain unnamed and unknown to science. The implications are staggering. If we don't know these species exist, we can't protect them. If we can't protect them, development, climate change, and invasive species could drive them to extinction before we even name them. On Scawfell Island near Mackay, researchers found another spectacular gecko, the Scawfell Island leaf-tailed gecko, living in boulder fields similar to Dawan. In the Australian Alps, expeditions recorded 12 potentially new species. In Western Australia's marine parks, researchers estimate 600 new deep-sea species await identification. Australia is revealing itself slowly, layer by layer, like an onion made of secrets. Each new discovery raises more questions. How many more species are out there? How many have we already lost without knowing? How many are disappearing right now? unnamed and unprotected. The granite boulders of Dawan Island have held their secrets for millions of years. The geckos and frogs living in those cracks and crevices evolved in isolation, adapting to conditions unique to this one tiny speck of rock in the Torres Strait. And they're not alone. Across Australia's remote regions, on islands, plateaus, and mountains we rarely visit, evolution continues its work. Creating, adapting, specializing, building biodiversity in places we've barely begun to explore. As night falls over Dawan Island, the newly discovered gecko emerges from its boulder fortress. Its eyes, perfectly adapted to darkness, scan for insects. Its camouflage makes it invisible against the granite. For millions of years, its ancestors have performed this same ritual, unknown to science, unconcerned with names or categories, simply surviving in the only home they've ever known. Now we know they exist. Now we must ensure they continue to exist. Because once a species this specialized, this isolated, disappears, it's gone forever. No second chances, no do-overs, just emptiness where wonder used to be. Number 4. The plague beneath the waves. The ocean looks peaceful from the surface, blue, calm, inviting, but beneath those gentle waves, an invasion is underway. Silent, unstoppable, transforming one of Earth's greatest wonders into a battlefield. Crown of thorns starfish, Acanthester plansii, and they're devouring the Great Barrier Reef. Each starfish is a nightmare made flesh, up to 40 centimeters in diameter, covered in venomous spines that can punch through diving gloves and inject toxins, causing excruciating pain, nausea, and vomiting. Armed with up to 21 arms, each lined with thousands of tube feet that grip coral with inexorable strength. But it's what they do that makes them truly terrifying. They eat coral, exclusively, and they're very, very good at it. A single crown of thorns starfish can consume up to 10 square meters of coral reef per year. During outbreaks, and outbreaks are becoming more frequent, populations can reach millions, millions of starfish, each eating several square meters of living coral annually. The math is genocidal. The Great Barrier Reef has experienced multiple crown of thorns outbreaks since the 1960s. Each one devastating, each one worse than the last. Scientists estimate these outbreaks have contributed to nearly 40% of coral loss on the reef since 1985. But here's what keeps marine biologists awake at night. We don't fully understand what triggers these outbreaks. Leading theories point to agricultural runoff increasing nutrients in coastal waters, which creates phytoplankton blooms that starfish larvae feed on. More food means more larvae survive to adulthood. More adults means more coral death. The starfish have evolved a feeding strategy that borders on sadistic. They push their stomachs out through their mouths, a process called external digestion, and spread them over living coral. Digestive enzymes dissolve coral tissue while the animal is still alive. The starfish then absorbs the liquefied tissue, leaving behind white coral skeletons. Dead, ghostly, silent, and once they finish one section, they move to the next. And the next, a slow-motion massacre playing out across thousands of kilometers of reef. Scientists have tried everything to control them. Divers injecting individual starfish with lethal solutions. Specialized robots programmed to seek and destroy. Barriers and traps. But the reef is vast, and the starfish are more vast. For everyone killed, dozens remain unseen in the deep. Recent research has revealed something even more disturbing. Climate change is making conditions more favorable for crown of thorns outbreaks. Warmer waters extend their breeding season. Stronger storms wash more nutrients into coastal areas. And bleaching events, caused by rising temperatures, weaken corals, making them more vulnerable to starfish predation. It's a perfect storm of destruction. The reef faces bleaching from heat, acidification from CO2 absorption, pollution from runoff, and now, waves of venomous starfish consuming whatever corals manage to survive everything else. The Great Barrier Reef, visible from space, one of the natural wonders of the world, is dying. Scientists estimate 50% has been lost since 2016. And crown-of-thorn starfish are accelerating that loss with every moment they feed. There are scientists who dedicate their entire careers to fighting these outbreaks, spending hours underwater, injecting starfish one by one, knowing that for everyone they kill, countless others remain. It's Sisyphean, exhausting, heartbreaking, but they continue. Because the alternative is unthinkable, a world without the Great Barrier Reef. A world where one of nature's most spectacular achievements becomes a graveyard of bleached skeletons and silence. As night falls over the coral sea, the crown-of-thorns starfish begin their nocturnal feeding. Millions of them spreading across the reef like a plague, their tube feet gripping coral, their stomachs everting, digestive enzymes beginning their work. By morning, another section of reef will be white. Dead. Another small piece of wonder erased forever. And the starfish will move on, searching for the next meal, the next victim, the next piece of paradise to dissolve into memory. Number 3. The spider that shouldn't exist. There are moments in biology when you discover something so strange, so unexpected, that it forces you to question everything you thought you knew about evolution. In 2023, Australian researchers made such a discovery. A spider. But not just any spider. A spider that rewrites the rules. They named it after Venom, Tom Hardy's Marvel character. Venomius Tom Hardy. And the name is more appropriate than you might think, because this spider possesses venom unlike anything science has seen before. The spider is an orb weaver, part of the Argiope family, found in Queensland's forests, medium-sized, beautifully patterned, with legs striped in black and yellow. From a distance, it looks like hundreds of other Australian spiders. But its venom is revolutionary. Chemical analysis revealed compounds that don't exist in any other known spider species. Peptides that interact with mammalian nervous systems in completely novel ways. Proteins that suggest this spider's venom evolved along a path separate from all its relatives. Dr. Robert Raven, the arachnologist who led the identification, explained the significance. This isn't just a new species. It's a new kind of venom architecture. We're looking at millions of years of isolated evolution producing something genuinely unique. But the Venomius spider is just the beginning. Australia is home to approximately 10,000 spider species. Scientists estimate we've only identified about 4,000. That means 6,000 spider species. 60% of the country's arachnid diversity remain unknown to science, and each one could possess venoms we've never encountered, toxins that could kill in new ways, or save lives in new ways. Because spider venom is a treasure trove for medical research. Venoms from Australian spiders have already contributed to treatments for chronic pain, erectile dysfunction, and heart arrhythmias. The complex peptides in spider venom can target specific cellular receptors with precision that pharmaceutical companies can only dream of achieving synthetically. But here's the terrifying part. Many of Australia's spiders are declining due to habitat loss. Species going extinct before we even know they exist. Each one potentially carrying venom compounds that could have revolutionized medicine. Gone. Forever. Their secrets dissolved into extinction before we could ask them questions. The funnel web spider, one of Australia's most deadly, has venom that's been studied for decades. Yet scientists continue finding new compounds in it. New peptides with unexpected properties. If we're still discovering things in one of the most studied spiders on Earth, what are we missing in the 6,000 we haven't even identified? And it's not just spiders. Australia is discovering approximately 2 new species every single day across all taxonomic groups. Frogs that laugh instead of croak. Marine worms named after David Attenborough. Fish that glow in the deep. insects that defy categorization. The pace of discovery is accelerating. New DNA analysis techniques allow scientists to distinguish species that look identical to the naked eye. Machine learning helps identify patterns in massive datasets. Citizen science apps let everyday Australians contribute observations from their backyards. But it's a race to catalog biodiversity before it disappears. Because Australia is also experiencing an extinction crisis. Mammals are dying out faster here than anywhere else on Earth. Habitat destruction continues. Climate change accelerates. Invasive species spread. Every day, scientists are discovering new species and losing old ones, finding wonder and witnessing extinction simultaneously. It's exhilarating and heartbreaking in equal measure. As night falls across Queensland's forests, the venomous spider repairs its orb web, silk stronger than steel flowing from its spinnerets. In its venom glands, compounds unlike any other wait for the next insect to become entangled. Compounds that could cure diseases or cause new ones. Compounds we've only just begun to study. And in forests across Australia, 6,000 other spider species wait in shadows, each one carrying secrets in their venom. Some will be discovered. Many will disappear before we know they existed, taking their secrets with them into the silence of extinction. Number 2. The sound that changed everything. In the darkness of a Queensland rainforest, a sound echoes through the trees. Not a croak, not a ribbit, a laugh. A genuine, unmistakable laugh. Scientists stopped, listened, recorded, and realized they'd been wrong for decades. The western laughing tree frog, Litoria loflingi, discovered in 2023 not through visual observation but through sound. Through the Frog ID app, which allows citizen scientists to record and upload frog calls, creating a massive acoustic database spanning the entire continent. Dr. Jody Rowley, curator of amphibian and reptile conservation biology at the Australian Museum, analyzed thousands of these recordings. What she found shocked her. Frogs that scientists had classified as the same species based on appearance were actually producing completely different calls, different mating songs, different territorial declarations, different species. "We thought we understood Australian frogs," Dr. Rowley explained. But we were only using our eyes. When we started listening, really listening, we discovered we'd been lumping multiple species together as one. The genetic and acoustic data revealed cryptic diversity we never imagined. The laughing tree frog is just one example. Across Australia, bioacoustic analysis is revealing that frog diversity is far higher than traditional methods suggested. Species that look identical to each other sing different songs. And in the frog world, song is everything. It determines who mates with whom. It defines species boundaries. It is the difference between one species and 5. But there's something more profound happening here. Something that changes how we understand discovery itself. The Frog ID app has been downloaded over 1 million times. Everyday Australians walking through their neighborhoods, hiking through bushland, or camping in national parks are recording frog calls and contributing to science. These aren't trained biologists. They're teachers, students, retirees, and children. Yet their contributions have led to multiple new species discoveries and entirely remapped Australia's frog distribution. It's democracy in action. Science by the people, for the people. And it's working better than anyone expected. In 2024, the app recorded calls from over 240 frog species across more than 800,000 submissions. That's more data than professional herpetologists could gather in a century of fieldwork. And hidden in those recordings are calls from frogs we haven't identified yet. Species waiting in acoustic data, invisible but audible, ready to be discovered by someone with the time and expertise to analyze the recordings. But the discovery of the laughing tree frog reveals something darker. If we've been misidentifying species for decades, how many have we already lost without knowing? How many species that went extinct were actually 5 species disappearing as one? Australian frogs are under pressure. Chytrid fungus, a disease that has devastated amphibian populations worldwide, continues spreading. Habitat loss fragments populations. Climate change alters breeding conditions. Pollution affects water quality in breeding sites. If we don't even know how many species exist, how can we protect them? The laughing tree frog might be common, or it might be endangered. We simply don't know yet. Its range is still being mapped. Its population size unknown. Its ecological requirements unstudied. And it's not alone. Dr. Rowley's ongoing research suggests there may be dozens more frog species hiding in the acoustic data. Frogs that look like other frogs but sing their own songs. Each one a separate evolutionary lineage. Each one deserving recognition and protection. The implications extend beyond frogs. How many bird species have we misidentified because we focused on appearance rather than song? How many insects, fish, or mammals exist as cryptic species complexes, identical to the eye but genetically and behaviorally distinct? As night deepens over Queensland, the laughing tree frog begins its nightly chorus. Its laugh, genuine, infectious, unmistakable, echoes through the forest. Other males join in, each one singing his own variation, declaring territory, attracting mates, living according to genetic instructions refined over millions of years. Somewhere, a citizen scientist with a smartphone holds it toward the sound, recording, uploading to Frog ID, adding to the database, contributing to science without knowing that in 5 years, that recording might be the evidence that describes another new species. The frog doesn't know it's newly discovered. It doesn't care about scientific names or taxonomic classifications. It simply laughs into the darkness, as its ancestors have done for eons, waiting for an answer from the night. Number 1. The virus that could end us all. Deep in the genome of every human being, there are ghosts, fragments of viruses that infected our ancestors millions of years ago. Genetic echoes of plagues that almost ended us before we began. And in 2025, Australian scientists discovered something that suggests those ghosts might wake up. The research, published in October, revealed that ancient viral sequences embedded in human DNA, sequences that have been dormant for millions of years, can be reactivated under certain conditions. Stress, disease, environmental factors. When they wake, they begin producing viral proteins, behaving like infections, triggering immune responses. Dr. Michael Roberts from the University of Queensland led the study. We've always known these viral fossils existed in our genome, he explained. What we didn't know is that they could become active again, that they could potentially contribute to disease, that the past, in a very real sense, is not dead. It's not even past. The implications are staggering. Approximately 8% of human DNA consists of ancient viral sequences. Millions of years of viral infections, fought, survived, and incorporated into our genome. Most of it junk, inactive, silent. But some of it is waking up, and we don't fully understand why or what it might do when it does. This discovery connects to something even more unsettling. Remember the salt gully virus found in Australian flying foxes? The henipavirus that's been circulating since 2011, undetected. That virus represents the immediate threat, new pathogens jumping from animals to humans. But these ancient viral sequences in our genome represent something else, an internal threat. Viruses we thought we'd defeated millions of years ago, returning from within our own cells. Some scientists believe these reactivated viral sequences might contribute to autoimmune diseases, cancers, and neurological conditions. When ancient viral genes start producing proteins, our immune system doesn't recognize them as self. It attacks. And sometimes that attack causes collateral damage to our own tissues, Other researchers propose something even more disturbing, that under certain environmental conditions, radiation, pollution, climate stress, these ancient viruses might not just become active. They might recombine with modern viruses, creating hybrid pathogens that possess characteristics of both ancient and contemporary infections. A nightmare scenario that sounds like science fiction, but rests on solid molecular biology. Australia sits at the center of this research because of its unique position. Isolated for millions of years, the continent's wildlife evolved separately from the rest of the world. Separate viruses, separate evolutionary pressures, separate genetic archives of ancient infections. Studying Australian species, from bats carrying henipaviruses to koalas battling retroviral epidemics, provides insights into how viruses and hosts co-evolve over deep time, and what that coevolution means for future pandemics. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us that viruses can bring the modern world to its knees. But COVID was, in many ways, moderate. Its mortality rate was relatively low. Its transmission, though high, could be reduced with simple precautions. The next pandemic might not be so forgiving. Henipaviruses like Nipah can kill 75% of those infected. They spread from animals to humans through multiple routes, and they're evolving, adapting, changing as climate change and habitat destruction force wildlife into closer contact with human populations. Australia's flying foxes roost in increasingly urban areas as their forest habitat disappears. They fly over cities, farms, and suburbs. Inside them, viruses like Salt Gully circulate, mutate, evolve. Each one a potential spark waiting for the right conditions to ignite a global fire. And now we learn that inside us, inside every human being, viral sequences wait. Ancient, dormant, but not dead. Under the right conditions, they wake, and when they do, we don't know what they might become or what they might do. Dr. Roberts' team is now working to understand what triggers these reactivations and whether they can be prevented or controlled. The goal isn't to scare people, he said. It's to prepare, to understand the threats we face, both external and internal, because you can't fight what you don't understand. As dawn breaks over Australia, the flying foxes return to their roosts, carrying viruses in their bloodstream. In laboratories, researchers analyze genetic sequences, searching for clues in ancient DNA. And inside every human cell, viral fossils wait, silent remnants of plagues survived by our ancestors. The question isn't whether we'll face another pandemic. It's when, and whether the virus that causes it will come from outside, from the animals we displace and disturb, or from inside, from the viral ghosts written into our own genetic code. Either way, Australia's scientists stand at the front lines, studying both threats, racing to understand them before they evolve from possibility to catastrophe. Because in the modern world, globalized and connected, a virus that emerges in Australia can reach every continent within 24 hours. And in 24 hours, the world can change forever. The sun rises over Australia. Golden light spills across red deserts, emerald rainforests, and turquoise seas. From space, it looks peaceful, beautiful, ancient. But we know now what lies beneath that beauty. Discoveries that challenge everything we thought we understood. Species hiding in plain sight. Viruses circulating unseen. Ancient genetic codes awakening. Ecosystems transforming. Balance shifting. 15 discoveries. Each one terrifying in its own way. Not because they're monsters designed to frighten us, but because they reveal how little we truly know about the world we inhabit. Australia, the isolated continent, the living laboratory of evolution, continues to surprise us. 2 new species discovered every day. Thousands more waiting in unexplored forests, uncharted depths, and unexamined genetic data. The scientists who make these discoveries don't work for glory. They work because every species identified is one that can be protected. Every virus understood is one that might not cause the next pandemic. Every mystery solved opens doors to medical advances, ecological insights, and deeper understanding of life itself. But time is running out. Climate change accelerates. Habitats disappear. Species go extinct before we know they exist. And the discoveries we're making now might be cataloging wonder in its final moments. The crown of thorns starfish devouring the Great Barrier Reef. The Gympie Gympie tree defending its territory with eternal pain. The ancient viruses waking in our DNA. The megafauna fossils revealing we misunderstood human history. The glowing sharks hunting in the abyss. Each discovery asks the same question: what else don't we know? And perhaps more importantly, what are we losing before we can learn it? Australia has been called the land of living fossils. Creatures that survived mass extinctions, climate shifts, and geological transformations. They persisted for millions of years, adapting, surviving, evolving, but they might not survive us. As you walk through an Australian forest, swim in Australian waters, or simply look up at the night sky where satellites map the continent below, remember, beneath your feet, in the water around you, written in the stars and in your own DNA, mysteries wait. Some will be discovered, some will disappear, and some will reveal themselves in ways we never expected, changing our world in a single moment of terrible, beautiful understanding. Because that's what Australia teaches us. That terror and wonder are not opposites. They're partners. Two sides of the same truth. That life is more strange, more resilient, more fragile, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. And that every discovery, no matter how terrifying, is a gift. A chance to understand, to protect, to wonder. Before it's too late, the continent breathes, ancient, isolated, alive, and it has so many more secrets to tell.